Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I thought I'll add some gravitas to today's meeting. Let's talk about constraints. What are some of the things that comes to your mind when you think about constraints? What are some of the words that comes to your mind?
Straight jacket.
Burden,
Burden,
projects.
projects, interesting, restraints,
Time limitation.
limitations,
Stress.
Limitations, yes.
awesome. Not really very imaginative words. But what I would like to do in the next 4-5 minutes is really take you through 3 examples across the world where people have really tuned the constraints and flipped them on their head. And I'm hoping through this process, I will be able to make a change in how you think about constraints in your lives. So the first example that I want to give is Unit 800. Have any of you heard about Unit 800? So this is the cyber security spy agency which is part of the Israel Defense Forces. And apparently the way you're aware that in Israel you have mandatory service and kids are pretty much at 18, you are in the defense forces. And the recruitment for this begins very early in their lives, and kids are recruited right when they are in high school. And they literally, they comb through high schools and target students that really have high potential and are brought into Unit 800. One of the things that when I read about this that really interested me was how much of artificial constraints that they sometimes pose on these kids and what comes out of that. So you need 300 million to do this, you only have 3 million. You need 10 people, you only have 1. You need a year to complete this, you only have a week. And these artificial constraints really forces them to be innovative. What is surprising is Israel is now turning into be a startup nation, and Unit 800 is their incubator for bringing up that talent. And a lot of tech startups and a lot of technology companies, a lot of venture capital kind of flowing into this, and the founders of a lot of them have their origins in Unit 800. A very interesting story that I think we should definitely keep a watch out for. The second example that while the first example was a lot more about forced constraints, the second one that I want to kind of bring to your notice is around constraints that are out of when things are out of reach for people, right? And the example that I want to bring is from India, but this is definitely not something that is only relevant to India. It's happening in a lot of emerging countries as well. I don't know if you've heard the term jugaad. It's a Hindi term that it's part of the English dictionary. And what it means is the innovation fix. So when you don't have the money and you need to kind of solve for something, what is that bare minimum that you can do and still solve the problem? And there's a lot of examples. I've just picked 2. Tata Nano is a car it's a brand new car that you can buy for $2,000. And the founder or the owner of the company, he saw families of 4 or 5 traveling in bikes and scooters, and that kind of got him to think, why wouldn't I have a price point that's really that makes it possible for a lot of middle class families to own cars and drive them. It's not just companies in these emerging countries, right? There's innovation that companies like GE is bringing into these economies, where they are creating products and services for the market that is really crunched for resources and for money, and a lot of them will have uses even in the developed world. And so the other example that I wanted to bring was GE. They have ECG electrocardiograph devices typically cost tens and thousands of dollars. But you have a portable ECG that just costs you $1,000, and that was made for the emerging market, but it has absolute uses in other places in the world as well. Closer home, there is definitely, and I don't know how many of you have heard about this, but almost a social movement around tiny homes, smaller footprint. Can we live with less? A whole movement towards a minimalistic kind of a lifestyle. And the reasons for why people opt for this are many, but I do feel it kind of clears their mind of a lot of clutter. Can we have a life that is more experience-based and not object-based? Can we derive our satisfaction from life not by owning property and owning things, but by actually experiencing life? I hope the 3 examples that I gave today will really force you and urge you to think about constraints differently. Can we do more with less? Can we turn constraints into opportunities and improve our lives? Thank you, everyone.